Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions on faith and life, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. As always, you can ask questions on slido.com. Use the hashtag ALC23. We'd love to hear from you. Well, let's jump into today's question. Can a church function without requiring people to pay tithes? Can a church function without being a charitable status? Hey, good question. Really two questions. Let me just take the easy part first. The second question, can a church function without being a charitable trust? I would want to say absolutely, no question of it, because being a charity or not doesn't stop the work of the Great Commission. Being a charity or charitable status reflects the fact that a church in this context is working for the better of society, but it doesn't determine what a church can and can't do. That's shaped by the scriptures. Charitable status has more to do with tax and all those sorts of things than what it actually does or doesn't do. So if a church loses its charitable status, I don't think that's really going to affect the way that a church functions. In fact, I really think the question that you're asking is more along the lines, given the previous part of the question, is that I think what you're really asking is, if a church can't claim, if people can't claim rebates, will they still give to a church? I want to say that in my experience, overwhelmingly, the people who give to church don't do it to get a rebate. They do it because they are invested in the work that the church does to bring about the Great Commission. And so I don't think losing tax deductibility would alter that too much. There may be a few on the peripheral edges of the church that it affects, but the majority I don't think it would affect. In fact, if you look at the UK, if you give to a charity, there's tax deductibility, but not for the donor. The donor doesn't get the rebate back. That rebate goes back to the organisation that money was given to. So up to like 25%. So if I gave $100 to the church, the government would give a further $25. And the evidence suggests that, even though the person doesn't get direct benefit from it, it hasn't impinged upon the way in which they give. So a church can still function without being a charitable trust. To answer the second part of the question, can a church function without requiring people to pay tithes? Can I just say right at the outset that a church hopefully a church doesn't require people to pay tithes. It shouldn't require people to give in order to attend, in order to participate. I'm not aware of, and as I say, I hope there aren't churches that mandate it. Perhaps there are, but that's not been my experience. My experience has been that churches, as part of the Great Commission of making disciples, teaches people as part of that whole making followers of Jesus about stewardship, about how what we have is not ours, but it's a reflection of what God has entrusted unto us. We steward what He has given us. So, for example, in 1 Chronicles 29, when they're building the temple here, and they all make these huge offerings and they give sacrificially, and it's overwhelming. And we read how they say that everything that we have is God's, and all we're really doing is giving back to Him what is already His. And it's that principle of stewardship, and it carries right through into the New Testament. And we talk about tithes. And when we talk about stewardship, we tend to talk about tithes, but I'm not sure that's really even fully understood correctly, let alone whether it's appropriate, because in the Old Testament, there was 2 annual tithes. And if tithe is 10%, that means 20% straight off the top. And there was a third tithe that perhaps different people suggest it was paid every 3 years. So, at least that's suggesting 23% as a minimum. And we talk about tithes simply in terms of 10%. Because I think we've missed the point of what it means to be a steward. A steward isn't just to pay a bit off the top and then carry on and do what I want with the rest. It's to recognize, as I say in 1 Chronicles, everything that we have is God's, and we're just stewarding it on His behalf. I think of in Mark chapter 12 with the widow's mite, and she gives everything she has, and Jesus references her in terms of her sacrificial giving. And I think that's a better place to look at how we give in terms of supporting the work of the gospel, rather than just looking at percentage based as as the be all and end all. I think if our giving doesn't impact on our lifestyle, it doesn't force us to make choices about what we do or don't do because we have given to the work of God, then I'm not sure that we've really taken on stewardship well. In Hebrews chapter 10, verse 1, it talks about how the law is a shadow of things to come. It's not a reality. And tithing belongs to that. So if we talk about shadows and realities, if 10% is a shadow, what would reality be? Well, you could argue that reality is 100%. And so, in other words, everything we have is God's, and we're just returning back to Him a portion of that, and we're still continuing to use what we have, not for our own good, but for the benefit of God. The way we look after our family, the way that we give to other organizations, the way that we use what we have to bring blessing, to bring hope, not just to ourselves, but for others. That we're not called to lavish lifestyles. We're called to steward our resources in ways that people look at it, the way we live, and say, wow, there's something about them, and it points beyond us to God. So maybe instead of saying, can a church function without requiring people to pay tithes, if we take the concept of stewardship seriously, we should be asking ourselves a different question, or reframing it and saying, is someone really a follower of Jesus if they aren't giving to their local church? Can you really claim to be a follower of Jesus and not do what He said, which was to live a sacrificial lifestyle and to give as a steward to the work of God through the local church and through other ways as well? So I don't think that's I think simply to talk in terms of tithing is to miss the point personally when it comes to finances. So yeah, that's how I would respond to that type of scenario. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Why not post them in the comments below? But until next time, God bless.